Board Game Geek, very popular website in our board gaming hobby, has a ranking system and a ranking list showing the most popular games. However, as popular as Board Game Geek is, the hobby itself is so much bigger. And the ranking system, we all know, has some serious flaws. So the top 10 games on the Board Game Geek site don't necessarily represent the 10 games that people are playing the most. So what games are people actually playing? Howdy and welcome back. I'm Mike, your board gaming every dude, and these are the top 10 games people are actually playing. Chapter 1, The Method. Heath, the owner of my local game store, Cape Fear Games, was kind enough to share some data with me. So he shared his sales data for 2024. So some assumptions that I'm making in this video is that the games that are most purchased are the games that are being most played. That may have a flaw. However, I think when you see the games, you'll be like, pretty much everyone I know that owns these games plays these games and plays them a lot. So what I looked for was the top 10 games that sold the most this year. So you're probably thinking, well, if we're going big like that, it's going to be Monopoly and Life and Clue and Uno. I'm going to tell you right now, spoilers alert, there is no Monopoly and there is no Life and there is no Clue anywhere on this list. Look, let me show you around the store real quick. Chapter 2, the game store. So you can see as we are walking into the store, we've got our classics section. We've got our Monopoly games, our Clue, our Life, Risk, Axes and Allies, all that kind of fun right there. And if you're familiar with this channel, you'll be familiar with the new arrivals section that we check sometimes. They've also got a whole card section, but we're not including that for the purposes of this video, as that's more of an adjacent hobby. So let's look at what they have right here. We've got party games, all kinds of party games. Moving over, we've got our two-player games. Let's just skip way over here, and we're going to look at deck builders. Now, once we get into strategy, of course, there's a whole section for that. Worker placement? Don't mind if I do. What about area control? Well, we've got those as well. Are you surprised that cooperative games actually have one of the largest sections of all these shelves? And then, of course, we got puzzles. A whole role-playing section. Seasonal features. We got kids games. We've got Kickstarters. And then, of course, we've got hidden treasures, those hidden gems in the back rooms. And, of course, they've got their free library. Come, get some coffee, play a game. So hopefully that can show how my method, though not perfect, is reasonably accurate for the purpose of this topic. If you think there's a more accurate way, please let me know in the comments. That makes it a great time to mention the sponsor of this video. To no surprise, it is Cape Fear Games. If you're interested in the 10 games in this video or any other board games, go to the link in the pinned comment and in the description below. It's going to take you to their online store. And when you check out, if you use my code, boardgames1, all one word, you're going to get 20% off your order. Benefits the local game store, it benefits you, and I'm an affiliate, so it benefits me and supports this channel as well. Of course, if you want to support the channel for free, please do. Give a like, subscribe so that you come back for more, tell your friends about it, share it, whatever you like. I'm so glad to have you here. Chapter 3, the results. What do you think's going to be on this list? Are there going to be any solo games? Any true hobby board games? Is it going to be all party games? What on earth is number 1? I was surprised. Now I feel like one of those terrible Facebook videos where they're like, wait till you see number 1. But in this case, wait till you see number 1. All right, number 10. Board game most being played is Root. I'm not sure if I pointed to the right spot. It's the only game in this list of top 10 that I do not have in my library. So I'm sorry I don't have it to put on the table here. And full transparency there, I still haven't played it, largely because I just don't have a desire to. But let me tell you about it first, and then we'll decide if maybe I'm actually going to get myself to play this game that so many people tell me about and love. Root is a competitive 2 to 4 player game, cutesy little game in the woods where you are battling as these, big word, anthropomorphic, I'm just going to say cutesy animals, all right? I'm just going to say cutesy animals that are battling for control of the woodland. So the big sell with this game is its asymmetry, that each of the factions, each player chooses one to play as, has its own, not just its own special abilities, it has its own way to play and its own victory conditions. So there are 4 different victory conditions based on whatever faction you play. It's actually considered a war game, though I wouldn't consider it a war game in the sense of like war gaming, those historical games, but you are battling each other to control different areas. But again, 4 different win conditions. So what surprises me about this being number 10 is, though this may not be a super heavy game or anything like that, it sure sounds complex to me. Like, how am I going to teach this to new people? I have to teach 4 ways to play to new people. Well, there are some really good threads out there on how to teach this game in a simple way and let people learn as they play. And if you want to play it solo, it's the River Folk expansion. I believe it's the first one that introduces the 1-player mode. It expands it to a 1 to 6 player game. And I know the Clockwork expansion, that has more solo on it as well. So look, I'm willing to try it, but I'm not really interested in playing it solo. I can't tell you exactly why. I am interested in being taught this game. So if you're ever at a board gaming convention with me, please, or you're just playing with me for some reason, I don't know, please teach me how to play and we'll see what I think about it. Number 9, our first party game, Sushi Go. This is a card drafting game. You can do something called, hate drafting in this. Go. I have only played Sushi Go Party, so I was surprised to see the simplified version here. The party version introduces like menus and things like that. It complicates it a little bit more. What you do, everybody gets 3 cards, and on a turn, everybody puts 1 card face down. Once all the cards are placed face down, you reveal your card. Everybody sees their thing, and some of them have special effects that might make something happen, but really it's just for points. So I put down wasabi, right? Which is, okay, it lets me get more points on another card. If I had put down something simple like, let's give me something simple here, okay, like a maki maki. Let's say I had put that down. That's worth something else. Whoever ends the game with the most maki rolls is the one that gets the points for it. But anyway, you reveal your card, it's worth something. Then the 2 cards that are remaining in your hand get passed to the person to your left. And you get the 2 cards from the other person. So that's where hate drafting can come in, because if you're like, I really have an ugly hand, I want to keep this card and give these people something awful. Or you can focus on keeping things good for yourself. But now you have your 2 cards in your hand, right? And you're going to put one face down. You keep going until you have no cards left in your hand. At the end of the round, you score up your cards, tally it all down, and then discard everything from your hand, except for pudding. No big deal. Those get scored actually at the end of the game. Then you start the next round. You draw your 3 cards, do the same thing. At the end of the 3rd round is final scoring. That's when you score your pudding. Game ends. Whoever has the most points wins. And you know, I should mention the designers here. Designer of Root is Cole Wehrle. Designer of Sushi Go is not mentioned. Root is around $40. Sushi Go is under $20. Number 8. Number 8 is also a party game. Don't worry, we've got some solo games coming. We've got Poetry for Neanderthals. This one is new to me, so I was actually excited to pick it up, and I'm going to be taking it down to Myrtle Beach with friends, and we're going to have a great time with this. But how do you play Poetry for Neanderthals, and why is it so popular and getting played so much? So it's very simple. You play in teams of players. It can really be any number, but it lists here 2 or more players. You play it over 3 rounds. When it's your turn, somebody on your team is going to take the role of the poet. And you've got these cards here with words on it. You flip the timer, and you have until that timer runs out to get your team to guess the word that's on your card. So in my case, I have the word tutor. Well, this is where the Neanderthals things comes in. And if you're not the poet, the opposing team gets this club. And if you break any rule, they get to shout out no. and whack and whack you with it. It's pretty. I mean, don't hurt them gently. So that part's pretty fun. All right. Anyway, so let's say my word is tutor. I need to get my team to guess it. So I can only use one syllable word. So I'm going to say, man, teach stuff to you. And they'll be like guessing things like, oh, teacher or whatever. And I'm going to just get it going until they finally say, so I might be like, man, teach stuff to you at home. And they might finally get to tutor. If they get it, great. I get to, drop the card down in the +1 point. If I break a rule and get whacked with the club, then it goes to the -1. But there's also a +3 point. So let's say they guess tutor, or I just want to go straight for the +3. But let's say they guess tutor, and I want them to get a 3-point word, math tutor. Then I might keep going. They guess tutor, and I'll be like, teach you one. I can't say number. How do you say that? And I can't say math. So teach you plus teach you times. I can say that, right? I don't know why I'm whacking this. I just want to hit people with it. But anyway, you get the point. If they get that, then you get 3 points. Then the other team takes their turn. Your turn ends when the timer runs out. After each team has had 3 turns, you total up the scores. That person wins. Super simple. I can see why it gets played a lot. All right. Number 7 is Final Girl, the core box. I don't have the core box anymore. I consolidated boxes, so I'm just holding up the props box. But it looks kind of like this, except it's very dark. Anyway, what's interesting about that is Final Girl is a solo-only game. You can play it cooperatively with 2 players if you want to, but really, it's designed to be played alone. So this is the game where you play the role of the final girl in any of up to 10 scenarios right now. Season 3 came out, so that's going to be 15 different scenarios that are called feature films, with each one inspired by a popular film like Terminator or Alien or any of the famous horror genre films, even though some of those I wouldn't say are in the horror genre. Anyway, you play as the final girl trying to beat the killer. You beat the killer, you win. So what's interesting about the core box being the most, I mean, that's not a surprise because you have to own the core box in order to play any of the feature films. But the core box alone doesn't allow you to actually play the game. It just gives you the base of the system. So if this was a video game system, then the core box is the PlayStation. And then all of the different games, well, that's what the feature films are, right? So you have to buy that for $20. The lead designers, there are many designers based on the feature film, are Evan Derrick and AJ Porfirio of Van Ryder Games. So what you have right here laid out in front of me, though, is the deluxeified version. I have all of Season 2. I'm kind of funny. I'm not super into the horror genre. Some of it just kind of bothers my conscience a little bit. I know, consciences, right? Season 2 didn't quite as much. It was more creature feature, things like that. So that's what I have. And what I have laid out in front of me is the Nostromo, the Evamorph on the USS Conrad. I forget what the name of the feature film is. It's on the backs here. Into the Void. But quickly, how you play the game is on your turn, you play a card that's available to you to take an action. That could be walking, that could be attacking, that could be collecting an item. Whatever the card says to do, that's what you do. But when you play the card, you're told to roll a certain number of dice. And the number of dice is based on where you are on this horror track. The higher you are, the less dice you get. So you want to stay calm, right? The more panicked you are, the worse decisions you make. So you roll the dice, and then the dice result determines how successful you are. So if you chose to attack and you rolled the dice and it was a great roll, well, that's great. Then you get a good attack. If it's a bad roll, you might miss entirely. You can always mitigate by sacrificing cards from your hand instead of using them for the ability. That's really the key feature, is mitigating the luck in this game. So you take your action and it plays out here on the location board where you have the killer, in this case the Evamorph, running around. You've got yourself running around. I forgot to put the final girl out here. And then, of course, you've got other survivors, and maybe even special survivors, like the boyfriend or something like that. After you've taken your actions, then you're able to purchase new cards if you would like to put into your hand. The cost for them is in time. It's listed on the card, and you have to spend time in order to gain those new actions to put in your hand so that you can play them later. You're going to gain and lose time throughout the game, so that's one more thing that you want to manage along with trying to keep your horror down. After you've done all your stuff, there's this lovely thing called the terror deck, which just makes very bad things happen. You flip over the card and you do whatever terrible thing it says to do. It usually is going to involve the villain moving around and either killing other survivors or trying to kill you. Survivors get placed in the victim pool when you don't save them, but if you're able to save them, that's great. You put them on your final girl card. The more people you save, the more like special abilities you're able to unlock. I don't want to get too in the weeds on it, so then you've got, of course, your killer board over here. In this case, it's the Evamorph, and as things happen through the game, decisions you make might make their bloodlust track go up. The higher it goes up, the stronger they are, the worse it is for you. Some of them have special abilities that are triggered. Also, if you progress far enough in the game, which you probably will, you're going to flip over these cards. The first one is going to make things worse. They're going to do something special. And then the next is, of course, the finale. So this is, if you make it this far near the end of the game, they go into supercharge. It's usually just you and the killer facing off. Maybe you're going to win. One of the critiques of the game is that there's a lot of swing. To me, that's like if you play a game of baseball and you're like, there are way too many bats involved in this game. Well, it's a part of the game. Okay? You play this game because there's swing. You can mitigate it. They put in things to mitigate it, but look, that's a part of it. It is campy. It's not scary at all. It is emergent storytelling. So a story is happening as you're running around on the ship trying to save people. There's event decks. There's items to collect. There's a lot more that I haven't covered. There you go. Final Girl, number 7 for most played games. Number 6. This beautiful game here is Onitama. It runs under $30 from Arcane Wonders, designed by Shinpei Sato. Close to that. Okay, so this is a 2-player game. There is a way to play it as 1 player, but it is designed as a 2-player game, similar to something like chess, but with some pretty cool and simple rules. All right, so you've got the 2 teams, right? You're facing your opponent, and you have your movement cards. Each player gets 2 movement cards, and then there's this one in the middle. On your turn, you pick one of your movement cards and move any one of your pieces according to that grid there. So you might decide, I'm going to turn these around here. They're saying howdy to you, but they need to be saying howdy to me, and I'm going to turn you guys around too. Oh my goodness. Lovely little plastic miniatures here. Okay, anyway, let's say I picked the crane. Then I'm going to move my piece, that's the black square there, in that shape in any legal way. So I'm going to take my leader and go forward 1. Then I'm going to take this card that I played, put it here, and take this one that was in the middle and put it there. So now you can see how you're going to have a rotation of movement options. Then the opponent would go, and they're going to pick one of their pieces on one of their movement cards. They're going to move in any legal spot that they can. And they're going to do the same thing and take this card. You keep going back and forth. If you ever land on one of your opponent's pieces, one of the pawns here, the assistants, then they are captured and removed from the board. If you capture the leader, you win the game. Or if you get into the opponent's shrine, you win the game. Plays in about 15 minutes. And just to clarify, it's the master pawn that has to make it into the opponent's shrine space there. Before I pack it up, if you want to play this solo just for practice, what some people have done is they've used either 2 dice or a coin and dice. So let's take the coin and dice. Let's say that you assign heads to one movement card, tails to the other movement card that I've already packed up. But you flip the coin, and it lets you know which movement card the opponent is going to make. Then you use the dice to determine which pawn and which movement that they are going to make. It's similar to a system used in chess. I have not tried this personally myself. But as a 2-player game, super cool gem. Number 5, I was not surprised, and I was quite pleased to see this on the list, is Catan. We owe a lot of our hobby to this game. Excuse me. There we go. Energized again. Okay, so Catan, this is a 3 to 4 player game if you get the base game. There is a really good, well, I haven't actually played it, so I'm not going to attest to it, but it's reviewed very well. Anyway, solo mode on Board Game Geek. It's fan made, so I'm going to put a link in the description for that if you're interested in it. But essentially, a 3 to 4 player board game that introduces us to a lot of basic mechanics that we're going to see in other games. So, how on earth do you play this? Well, you play until you get to 10 points. Whoever hits 10 points first on their turn is the one that wins. First thing you're going to do on your turn is roll your dice and total it up. 5. So I look for the number 5, and there we go. So that would be the mountains. Anybody that has a building that is on a 5 anywhere on the border there is going to collect that resource. So if, for example's sake, red had this here on the mountain, they would draw 1 mountain resource card and put it in their hand. Pretty cool. Same thing would happen here with grains. If blue had a building there, then they would produce and they would get 1 grain. Next, you're allowed to trade. You get to trade with other players and negotiate. You can be like, hey, look, I've got 1 grain and I really need ore. Can I trade you this 1 grain for 1 ore? And you can only do this on your turn, right? So they could be like, I will trade you 1 ore for 2 grain, in which I'll be like, I don't have that. And then this player might be like, I have that. Nobody has to do it. You can do the trade at that point. Then comes the building phase. And that's where you've got a nice little cheat sheet where you're able to build based on your resources. So if you've got wood and wood and bricks, you get to make a road. You can only add a road to another existing road, but you want to have longer roads so you can build more settlements in between those roads. Or you can build yourself a settlement that's worth 1 point, or you can build yourself a city like Orange has done here, and that is worth 2 victory points. Then there are development cards. We're not going to get into that. That's how you play the game until somebody wins. You get bonus points for having the longest road or the largest army. Largest army is by playing night cards. I don't really have negatives to say about this game. I know it's very simple, but what a wonderful way to not just enjoy this game with new players and teach them quickly, but to kind of find out, do they like board games too? Do you want to get into the hobby? I probably wouldn't play it solo myself. It doesn't really interest me, but again, I've got the link in the description if you'd like. This is by Klaus Tuber. It is brought to us by Catan Studio, and I know that it runs under $50. If I recall correctly, it was around the $40 range. Number 4, Moyu Stickerless 3x3 Speed Puzzle. Also known as a Rubik's Cube, except this one must be a little bit different. It's got like kind of different shapes, but it's basically a Rubik's Cube. Should I include this? Well, you know what? It's in the solo gaming section. It is a 1-player puzzle, so I'm going to do it. There's not a lot to say about this. If you know what a Rubik's Cube is, you try to get all of one color on one side. It's less than $10. It's like $9, something like that. And it comes with a strategy on how to solve it. I try, it's never going to happen. Even following this strategy, I'm never going to get it. So yeah, number 4. Number 3, and this is, I'm pretty sure less than $10, maybe 15, but I'm going to say less than 10. This is Taco Cat Goat Cheese Pizza from, I got to flip you upside down, from Dolphin Hat Games. This is a fun little party game. I've played this quite a few times. Great for people that want a quick, you like slapping each other kind of game. So the point of this is to be the first player to slap the table when you have no cards left in your hand. So you start out with so many cards, and what you do on each round is you go around the whole table. When it comes to you, I would flip over a card, and I would say these words in sequence. Taco, cat, goat, cheese, pizza. So I put down a card, I say taco. The next person puts down their card, and they say cat. Next person says goat. Next person says cheese. Next person says pizza, and you just keep going around, right? So you're like, what's the point? Well, anytime you put a card down that matches what you say, then you have to immediately slap the center of the table, slap up top of the pile. The last person to slap their hand down takes all the cards. So let's say the word was taco. I put this down. It's a taco. Immediately, I'm going to slap this, and we're going to go through, okay? They would take all the cards. Let's say it's me. I take all the cards. Boo! Now I have more cards in my pile. And the next person starts out again with taco, cat, goat, cheese, pizza. You keep going until somebody has no cards, and while they have no cards, is able to slap their hand down and not be the last person, right? There are special cards, like the fireball. Anytime a special card comes down, so I would go cat, but it's a fireball, everybody has to go Hadouken, right? And do a fireball. And the last person to do that, or they slap down and then you have to do the Hadouken thing. Pretend to cast a fireball. Last person to do it takes all the cards. If it's a barrel, you have to pretend to throw a barrel over your head and then slap down. So there are some special cards in there to spice it up a little, but that is it. Very simple, fast game, fun to play with a few friends to warm up, or if that's just all people want to play. Taco Cat Goat Cheese Pizza, number 3. Number 2, the only classic game really on here, unless you want to consider Catan classic, is Uno. But it's not just Uno, it's Uno No Mercy, which you may have heard of this. It's called Spicy Uno. But this is like I think it's the same thing. My friends play this thing called Spicy Uno, and when I saw this and I read all the rules and all that, I'm like, well, that's this. So it's Uno No Mercy. This is $10, and this is from, doesn't even matter, Mattel. Designer, don't have a clue. In the game of Uno, like Taco Cat Goat Cheese Pizza, the goal is to be the first person with no cards left in your hand. This one adds something where you're able to actually kick people out of the game, so it gets a little more mean, and there's player elimination, which, you know, take that how you will. But on your turn, you look at the discard pile. You've got the draw pile here. Each player starts with, I don't know, 7 cards. We're going to say 7. And it's my turn. I have to place a card that matches the color or the number. So let's see. That's a 9. I'm going to place down a 9. And it goes to the next person. Once you get down to only 1 card, you have to shout out Uno. And then once you successfully get rid of that card, then you win the game. If you are not the first one to yell Uno, then you have to draw a card. It just goes around and around, right? Well, there are special action cards that you can play. So let's say that one, let's pretend that it was the red on the top. So I play a special card, which is going to reverse the direction that we play in. Or there might be another special card that makes the next person draw 3 cards or something like that. Or the next person has to skip their turn, or I get to go twice, anything like that. If I have no cards in my hand that I can put down, I have to draw until I get something that I can place. So I drew, and fortunately I can put something down. The special rules, and I had to pull this out even though it should be pretty simple. If you put down a 7, you have to swap your hand with another player of your choice, okay? And then if it's a 0, when you play a 0 of any color, all players pass their hand to the player to whatever direction you're going. And there is also something called stacking. So if you put down a draw 2 card, the next person would normally have to draw 2. Well, they could put down a draw 2 card on top of that. So the next person is going to have to draw 4. Unless they put a draw 4 card on top of that, then the next person is going to have to draw 8 cards. Okay, so whoever it ends up on last, it's really bad for them. If you ever have 25 cards in your hand, I believe, then you are knocked out of the game. Then, of course, there are some new wild cards and things like that. But that's pretty much it. Uno No Mercy at number 2. 2 to 6 players, don't see any reason you would make a solo mode for this, but let me know if you know of one. Number 1. Can you believe it? Most played game this year, Wormspan from Stonemaier Games, Connie Vogelman. And that surprise isn't because I disagree. I absolutely love this game. I'm glad it's doing well. I'm glad people are playing it. So what is Wormspan? Wormspan is based on, or it's inspired by, the Wingspan system, but it truly is its own game. And I've spoken about it before in other videos, but in a nutshell, it is a 1 to 5 player game. So if you are playing multiplayer, every person has their own player board and then some shared boards like the guild track and the market here and the round tracker. When you're playing solo, you have your player board and you're playing against an AI opponent, the Atoma, a smart opponent that competes with you and truly replicates the multiplayer game. So how do you play it? Well, basically, when it's your turn, you take one of 3 actions. So you have so many of these dragon coins that you get to spend per round. And once you and your opponents are out of dragon coins, then that round ends. The game lasts for 4 rounds. At the end of the game, whoever has the most points is the winner. You gain points by placing dragons in caves and things like that and advancing along the Dragon Guild track. You also get bonus points from completing round goals, which are scored immediately at the end of every round. And those are randomly chosen, different every game. Okay, so it's your turn. You're going to take one of 3 actions. You're going to excavate, entice, or explore. If you choose to excavate, you pay the cost of 1 coin plus whatever column you excavate. It may cost an extra egg or 2. What this means is you're just placing a cave. So if you have a cave in your hand and there's an empty space and you can afford it, then you place your cave there. If you choose to entice, well, that's where you get to place your dragon in a cave that you've excavated. So same thing, if you choose that action, you're going to pay a coin plus the cost on the dragon's card. In this case, it would be 2 gold bars and a purple diamond. But I'd get to place it in a cave that matches that dragon, and the card tells you there are 3 different caves. It tells you which ones it can be placed in. You place it there over the cave. If there's an immediate ability, it'll tell you on the card. Otherwise, just place it, and it'll benefit you later on. And finally, the last action you can take is to explore. This is where you really get that like chain reaction of building an engine. So to explore, you pay the cost on which cave you want to explore. There's 3 caves. So the first time you explore any cave during the round, it's cost of 1 coin. If you choose to explore that same cave more than once in a round, it gets more expensive, but you can always explore a different cave. Anyway, you pay your coin, and then you get to activate all the cave and dragon powers in that row. That's where you get real benefits. You gain resources, you might gain cave cards, you might gain dragon cards, you might move around this Dragon Guild track to gain resources or special benefits in the middle there. You might be able to work toward a round goal. That's where the real magic happens. Goes around till everybody's out of coins. Move to the next round, get to the end of the game, score your points, see who won. Chapter 4, bonus. You want to know what numbers 11 through 20 are? Let's do this real quick. All right, so going backward. Catan, number 20. Catan 5 to 6 player expansion. Okay, not a surprise. 19, Wavelength. I have seen this box. I have no idea what this game is about. Tell me about it in the comments. Do you like it? Do you love it? Number 18, Everdell, 3rd edition. All right, cute woodlandsy creatures, like 1 to 5 player game, tableau, all that stuff. Pretty cool. Number 17. We have our feature film now. Remember how I think it was number 7 was Final Girl, the core box, but we didn't know what the feature film was. The feature film, Final Girl Camp Happy Trails at number 17. Number 16. Bit of a role-playing game here, Red Dragon Inn. Ever heard of it? I've never played it, but I sure have heard of it. Something where you're like hanging out in an inn, drinking with friends, talking about these adventures that you've had. It's supposed to be good fun, kind of funny. Number 15, Bicycle Jumbo Faces playing cards. All right, some playing cards made it in there. Not surprised at all. Jumbo faces for those of us that need glasses. Even though mine don't have any lens, I just like the way they look. Number 14, social deduction game right here. One Night Ultimate Werewolf. While I would not say that this is the best of them, other games have refined it. This is a very important game in that genre where, you know, one or more people is on the werewolf team and it's secret, no one knows who they are, and everyone else is on, the majority are on the good team trying to find out who the werewolf is. And the game takes place over like day and night and day. You're talking, trying to find who the werewolf is, and if you guess correctly and get rid of them, you win the game on the good side. If you're on the werewolf side, then at nighttime, while everyone's eyes are closed, you pick somebody and kill them. You know, they're eliminated from the game. So, One Night Ultimate Werewolf. 13, Coup, social deduction game that kind of takes what Werewolf did but makes it better. Because Werewolf, it's harder to kind of get the discussion going unless everybody's super into it, right? Where Coup, the game manages a lot of that awkwardness and downtime for you. So, great social deduction game, Coup. Number 12, a great team game, Codenames. That's right, that's a game where you have a bunch of cards in front of you, and on your team, they're all like face down, and you have a leader who knows where your agents are in those cards, and you're trying to help your opponents identify the correct agents out in the field by trying to get them to guess a word. So each card has a word. So say like gold. So I might say something like metal, right? And hope that they pick that card as the agent. There's more to it. But anyway, number 11. Are you ready? Monikers. I don't even know what it is. I've never even heard of it. Tell me about it. All right. Chapter 5. The lesson. I was a little concerned when I decided to do this topic that I wouldn't really find any board games that I play or enjoy on the list, particularly since I lean so heavily into solo gaming. But my goodness, I found what I think is a healthy variety of games that we are actually playing. I mean, look what you got on there. You've got, if you want social deduction games, they're in that top 20 there. If you're just around the table playing rummy or poker, you got your cards in there. If you want to play the classics, the good old meat and potatoes that introduce us to Euro mechanics, you've got Catan in there. You're a solo gamer, or you like something that's more narrative, tells a story, gets your blood pumping. Well, you've got Final Girl. Party game nights with snacks and drinks and just playing something fast like Taco Cat Goat Cheese Pizza. Or even though, honestly, I don't love Spicy Uno or the Uno No Mercy, I would never pick it. But if that's what people want to play, I'm going to have fun with it. And of course, how good to see a new hit like Wormspan end the list. Y'all, we are playing some good games. Thank you so much for doing this with me. Are there other games that you thought would be on the list? Games that you didn't think would be on the list? Let me know in the comments. Make the discussion lively and fun. I love you all. I'll see you next time.